You and I are not pieces of God. In fact, Ernest Holmes didn't even like calling us parts. We are unique, yet united expressions, similar to the way your fingers express your hand. Now imagine that each one of your fingers express your hand. Now imagine that each one of your fingers had self-conscious awareness, capable of judging the other fingers, neighboring digits to its important. Who's the most important finger? You begin to get the idea of how we, as God's expressions, are capable of imagining ourselves to be separate and therefore lacking and therefore fearful or angry or so forth, blah, 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 blah. As we go into meditation, I invite you to contemplate, like the fingers on your hand, like the leaves on a tree, every being is a divine expression of the whole, a divine expression of love. as you bring your voice, your attention gently back to my voice, know that there is only God. God is, and I am. I am, and God is. And there is nothing outside of the wholeness, of the power, of the infinite knowledge, and the everywhere presence of this divine energy that is all that is what each of us is, eternal, infinite, ever expanding and evolving into greater good and more good and only good, ever expanding into life-givingness. And this power is available at every point in its entirety, simultaneously. Again, there is nothing outside of it. And so in this consciousness of oneness, I know is for each one of us as easily as I know for myself. Because in truth, there is no separation, but there is infinite freedom to create as God creates, which is only the good, the holy, and the beautiful. And with this freedom to create as God creates, I claim for each of us that we know we are the one expressing in infinite forms, and as I love my neighbor, I love myself. What I think of God, I think of you. What I think of you, I think of God. What I think of me, I think of God. Because it's all part of the wholeness. And every part is absolutely necessary and essential and cannot be separate. And I am so grateful that this is so. And I speak these words into the law of mind, knowing it is already so. It cannot be any different. And I say thank you, Mother, Father, God. And so it is.
So it is.
And let's welcome back Cahill and
Cahill and Delene.
Delene and
Delene and Delhill, sure.
We'll just anagram it.
That'll work. Just don't call me late for supper, as my mom used to say. Boy, those old ones, huh? It's good to see all of you here and out there. Love thy neighbor. I wonder if there's a Beatles song that we could do called All You Need Is Love. What about that?
Yeah.
Can we sing that one? All right.
2, 3, 4. It's easy.
is all you need.
Nothing you can know that isn't known. Nothing you can see that isn't shown. Nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. It's easy.
All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. All you need is love. All together now. All you need is love. Everybody. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. Love is all you need.
Love is all you need.
Love is all you need.
Love is all you need.
Love is all you need. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Wow. You set my mood now. Get all this ready for you. There it
You were fabulous.
Yeah. So good to see all of you guys. I am going to have to expand the chairs. Yay! We announced COVID is over. Yay. Oh, I want to welcome everybody that's on the internet. Hi, everybody. I know they're blocked out right now, but I see their names. Many of them, you know, we have a elderly crowd in some cases, and I want you to know they're all trained to be on the internet. And I love them because they get it. They get it. It's still important to grow, even though they can't get here. So my title is Love Thy Neighbor. And I thought, okay, where do I go with that? So some of you will get this, and I'm sure I'll hear a chuckle out of this. But I'm going to start out with a question. And the question is this. How do you hold these two thoughts in your heart? The first one is, thou shalt love thy Lord thy God with all my heart, and with all my soul, and with all my mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is, like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor. And the next one is, in today's language, pick your battles. Pick your battles. I knew I was going to get you. You know, this is a paradox that we live in today. It's be the good person, and yet what we see is war, and we see violence, and we see division, you know, and it's challenging. It's really challenging to see God in some of this, you know. I mean, every day, and it's nonstop now, right? It's all the time. And we have to lift ourselves up. We have to do something about it. Being here today, and I was thinking about this while Jody was praying. You're all here to hear this message today. So it's important that you pay attention to what I'm going to talk about. It's really important today because we're all affected by this. And the spiritual work that you do, I hear an echo here. Spiritual work that we do here is really important because it needs to lift us up during the week as we go along. Because it's not easy. So this month we're being called to look for love everywhere we go. The guy that's on the ground, you know, that's a homeless guy that decides that's where he wants to be. Or maybe not, but we have to see him as part of God. We have to, how we interact with people. Anybody have a rough week talking to anybody this week? Oh, come on, I'm not the only one. Sure, those things happen to us. The events of the world, obviously, and then ourselves. Anybody have a conversation with yourself this week? There we go, I'm not alone, all right. The thing is, we get to transform life, the world, and hopefully create harmony as we go along. Ernst Holmes said this, and I'm going to read this one because this is profound to me. In fact, the quote that they had is was short. And I thought, that's not enough. Where did this really come from? And I'll read it, because that's a lot for you to read up there. It says, we should daily train our thoughts to recognize the Spirit in everything we do, we say, or we think. When we do that, things are in alignment. There's no other way. To try any other way would be to make a complete failure. Render, therefore, unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God. A constant realization of the presence of Spirit will provide a sense of divine companionship, really important, that no other attitude could produce. Why should we not take the highest and the best? God is, and we should realize this truth and make use of it. As soon as we recognize God is, we can turn the law and tell it what to do. You get that? So there's several parts in here that really struck me. The first one was, which is the short paragraph that they gave me, is a constant realization of the presence of Spirit will provide a sense of divine companionship that no other attitude could produce. I have a story about that today. When we really get it that we're not alone, that we are one with something greater, then there's this warm feeling that comes over you. Do you know what I'm talking about? So start listening to your body if you feel this oneness. In fact, somebody was showing me a picture of their child this morning that was this high singing a song. And I was like, oh, I remember that. I remember that. You know how small he is now? And I just saw him and he's going, I want to grow a mustache. It's really cute. Why should we not take the highest and best? Sometimes we compromise, right? Anybody compromise? Yeah, we compromise. We don't have to do that. Think of what it is you want. And we should realize this truth and make use of it. When you know, I was talking to somebody else earlier, when you know that it is done, it is done. But we step back, we hold back. You don't have to do that. I'm here to tell you today, you don't have to do that. Everybody get that? You don't have to hold back anymore. And then the last part is as soon as we recognize that God is, we can turn to the law. This is the thing we really makes us a little bit different than everybody else out there. Is that we can say, law, go do what I need you to do, and I'm going to let it go because I know it's done. I feel like a preacher today. The thing is, we're conscious. That's what I love about religious science, is that we're conscious. We're conscious of what's going on. We're conscious of that we need to heal. We're conscious of Spirit. And the thing is we have to, as we are so conscious of this, we have to know that we're always being guided to the next step, to the next thing, and not be afraid of it. So I'm going to give you a story. It's a true story. Happened in 2000. I went to Austria, Switzerland, and Norway for 3 weeks. Now, how many people have been out of the country? How many people get a little nervous when you're out of your country? Me. I'm always worried, like, what's going to happen? Because I can't read the signs. I can't speak to the people because it's not the same language. But usually foreigners do know some English, so we're kind of okay. But, and the other part is like trying to read the signs. Which way do I go? Which way do I go? And the key for me on this trip, and I'm not taking you through my trip lane, okay? So you're not going to have to watch all the photos that I took. But we were going to be gone for 3 weeks. We were gone for 3 weeks. I lost 15 pounds in those 3 weeks. I think I need to go again. Anyway, the first place we went to is this place. It's called Hallstatt. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, you'll notice there's a little boat there. I'll talk to you about that boat in a minute. In fact, I was just reading last week that Hallstatt has become one of the most sought-after places to go, and they're actually asking people not to come. It's so crowded now, and it's just a little town. In fact, the streets are not as wide as this room. The streets are very narrow, probably about from here to there. That's what the streets are like. And so all you see are these little cars driving, right? All right, so we're on our way to this trip, and we get to the airport. This is the year 2000, and there is a mechanic strike. on United. So it starts out really well. And I call my practitioner, who at the time was Jana Zunich. We remember Jana. And and we were like kind of like panicked, you know. And they said, well, because we're going to miss our connecting flights, right? And so I call her and said, well they're going to put us on another flight, but it's going to be, you know, they're going to put us in business class. The time I didn't know what business class was. She goes, that's great. That's really good. I'm like, what do you mean that's really good? Well, because in business class, they give you this lounge chair and a television, and you can go to sleep by yourself. You don't have people cramped next to you, right? Because it was a 13-hour flight. Yeah. So she prayed, and after that, everything started to work, right? So we fly there. We fly to, God, I don't even remember. I think we had to stop in France even, but we didn't get out. We had to just wait for another plane. Got to the place we were needed to finally get to, and then took a train, and then from that train, and it was to Salzburg. I think it's Salzburg. And as soon as we get off the train, all these people accost us. Now, we don't know anybody. We don't know the language. We don't know who we can trust. You can kind of see the fear that's kind of coming up a little bit. Anyway, we finally said intuitively, you know what, we're going to find a hotel, which was just, you know, down the road. Anyway, it took us 27 hours. 27 hours to get from California all the way to Salzburg, which was a really long trip. So we were pretty testy by the time we got there. Anyway, and again, I won't bore you with a lot of more detail, but the next day we get up and we went, these backpacks are a little heavy. So we ended up taking a third of what we had, sending it back, which came back to us in California 2 weeks after we had returned. So just so if you ever go to Europe and you're going to do backpack, you want to do light. So we got up the next morning and had our first meal of schnitzel and eggs. That was a breakfast. It was great. It was like, oh, I didn't know what the word meant, but I was getting it. And then we had to walk to, I think we had to walk down I can't remember totally, but we had to walk a long way to get to the other side. See that boat right there? We were supposed to meet that boat the day before, but because our flight was delayed, we had to meet that boat the next morning. And so we walked to where the dock was for that little tiny boat, and that's how you get to Hallstatt. Anyway, it's really a gorgeous place. I went to all the churches and many, many things. Anyway, I won't get into that because then you wouldn't come back. So what I do want to say is that because even though we were tired, we really knew, and I was a practitioner, I think I've been 5 years as a practitioner, I really knew that I had to have a certain attitude. I had to see people as divine, as part of God, as more than me, and so that they would help us get to the next destination. Otherwise, if I didn't see their divinity, what do you think might have happened if I had gotten really mean and really angry? What happens when that happens? You can speak back to me. Bad news bears, right. So eventually we were there for about a week, did all the hiking, all that stuff, and then we went to a place called Lauterbrunn. Yeah, and that's a real live what it looks like. It's so beautiful, the waterfalls. And the guy, Geiger? I can't remember the name of it. Geiger, I can't remember the name. Anybody been there? Okay, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I want you to notice in the middle there's a steeple. It's a church steeple. There are real bells there. Real bells. And so every time they played 6 a.m., 9 a.m., noon, we heard the bells. Loud bells. But it's really important for you to know something about that place because I had an epiphany when I was there. And you would think, oh, as a practitioner, I would already know this. It wouldn't be a big deal to me. But the epiphany was I realized we were all one. There was no separation in who we were, because they lived here and I lived in the U.S., there was nothing that separated us. And the story goes, right next to that tower was a hotel. We were on the second floor. In Europe, at least here, because it was so chilly, there are no bugs. Yay! Especially when you're hiking. But you could look outside the window. So when you looked outside, you were looking outside to the people. So one day, afternoon, we'd come home and had been hiking all morning. And I heard these children laughing. I heard them laughing, and I'm like, what's that? What is that? And so I looked outside the window, and below me are these children, and they're running around, and they're playing tag. And they have this fire going. So they got a fire, and they're just having a great old time. It wasn't like a really hot, it was like today, actually. And they're having a really good time, and it was just the joy in their voices, listening to them. Just, it was like, oh, that's what brought me home. Anyway, it started to drizzle. Who had drizzled this morning? Yeah, most of us did. It started to drizzle. And they all of a sudden are starting to get wet. And then it starts to rain. And they didn't run into the house. Instead, they opened their arms, they put their hands up, they ran around with their tongue out. With their tongue out. Drinking the rain. They were like there. And I was there with them, watching them. And I stepped away for just a moment, and I heard these screaming, and I'm like, what are they screaming about now? I gotta go look. It was a laughter scream because moms were coming out to say, come on, it's raining, you've got to come in. And instead of the moms getting mad at them, you know what the moms did? Is they ran around with them and brought them in. That's when I got it, that we're all the same. We're all the same. We're all humans. And at a human level, we all want the same thing. We want love. We want peace. We want to have a good life. We want to be healthy, right? And we want to enjoy our life. But that was my epiphany. I got it. I really got it at it. And I still remember it today like it was yesterday. It was so, so cool. So I'm going to offer today some things that I hope will bring that home for you. I mean, if you were there visually seeing those children and you could see that expression, then maybe you got it. But I also want you to hear some other things. Holmes said this. He said, loving each other unconditionally. We need to love each other unconditionally. And that involves accepting people for who they are. Making sure I'm in the right place here. It's the unity of good is a revelation of the great importance, for it teaches us that we are one with the whole and one with each other. So I have a question. Anybody have any difficult family members? Oh, good. Yay, yay, I got a few of you here. So over the years, I have spoken to, on occasion, like Thanksgiving and Christmas, when everybody has to go back to the family, right? Got that? Got to go back and visit them, or they have to come. I always hear they have to come to me. Anyway, here's where you get to choose your battle, right? You have a choice, either choosing your battle or consciously opening things up for growth, for love. Deciding what's the most important thing. Because sometimes you're just not going to agree, right? And that's okay. But we have to make it okay, because they may not be on the same page, right? So there's a consciousness there. And in fact, I want to say that I will be, we will have living room conversations after church today. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to deal with that. So if you want to stay to get the tips, it's right after church. It's only for about an hour. Anyway, the thing is, we don't have to agree. We just have to open up to a loving conversation. And if that's too hard, I've had many people say to me, you know, we just don't broach the question. We just don't go there. And instead just enjoy the family with love. But I believe, and I talk about this all the time, we are called to be the example of God in the world, of peace, bringing peace to our, bringing peace to our businesses, our life. Tell you how many times I've been by myself and I've come upon somebody who's like at a gas station and they're having an argument. It gets a little out of hand, and I say, that's enough. I don't have to do anything, but I know the power. In fact, someone said this morning about the power we have. We have the power to just say, that's enough. So that we bring that peace here. That's part of our work. The second part of our work is to advocate for human rights. Martin Luther King said, love struck with each other, not colorblind each other. Love each other. Love each other. How many of you remember the civil rights movement of the 60s? A few of us do, yeah. And here's where people of all races, all colors got together to abolish Jim Crow and the laws of the United States so that it would become more free for everyone. It was a big deal. Now, I'm not a person that marches. I'm a person that educates. And what I want you to know is today what we're fighting is human trafficking. Human trafficking. And it's important for us to be aware of that. That's why the thought of human rights, it's like, I don't march. I don't know, I have a thing about being out there and marching. But I can be there for the person that needs that help. I can be there for the organization. And I know people who have been trafficked before. I know of organizations that help people that do that have been through that. But we can do that. So, normally we're not, we don't march on the streets as religious scientists. But we can use our mind to know a better way. And if we have, and I would think most of us here are pretty prosperous, put our money where our mouth is, where our beliefs are. That's your choice. And I'm not here to advocate that. I don't do that up here. But it's just something for you to consider. If you can help somebody, do it. Don't be afraid to. And then the last thing is called radical forgiveness. It's Debbie Ford's book on radical forgiveness calls for us to practice forgiving each other so that we can experience more love. And I put in there immediately or later. Just know it'll come. So I'm going to give you a story. And now the story I'm going to give you is about becoming a minister. And I know that Angela and I feel the same way about this. When we become a minister, we hear the call. All of us have a call. My call happened to be on Maui when God says, it's time. And I looked and said, who said that? Who said that? But it came back. It said, it's time. But I had the call. So the first day of class, when we go there, something that most people don't know is they will say to us, well, if there's anything else you can do besides being a minister, go do that. And we're all like, why would they say that to? We just got the call. We just got the call. So we don't really understand that when that happens to us. But as we become, or in the process of becoming, something happens to us. We become very conscious of ourselves, our thoughts, our actions, and we become very vulnerable. In other words, we're an open vessel for Spirit to move through us. And a lot of things happen along the way. A lot of things happen along the way. And it's not always easy. If anything, there are many lessons that we'd like to forget. But there are things for us to heal, for us to know a better way, to learn about. Sometimes it's the pain that all of you go through, that we're not immune to that. But most of it is about forgiving and letting go of things, and here's the key, things that we thought we loved, but do not serve our purpose anymore in the world. That's what it's about. It's letting go of those things because that's not who we are anymore. We're called to be more. Now, I said this is as a minister, but I want you to know if you're a minister, a practitioner, or you're here today, you're meant to hear this. There are things that no longer serve you, and it's okay to forgive and let go. It doesn't mean you have to hang out with them. Doesn't mean you have to be good friends with them. It just means it doesn't serve you anymore. In fact, I came up with a quote while I was writing this talk, but I first want to say one thing. It sounds like a lot to do. And one time, I can remember being in a practitioner class, and I said to Reverend Kathy, well, how do you do this? How do you kind of move on? He says, and how do you forget? And she says, it's one person at a time. It's one event at a time. That's how you do it. You can't take it all on at once. But while I was writing this, I came up with this quote from me. It says, we have to remember that what we want for ourselves, we have to also want for others. Otherwise, we are blocking our good by being stuck in the past and the thing that no longer serves us now or in the future. We have to let go of it. It doesn't do any more good. Instead, create that which we want. I mean, all of you being here today is really special to me because you're creating this. This is what I wanted to create. As a place where people could come, they could feel trusted, they could feel loved, they could feel safe. They could be on the internet if they chose to be, or they could come live. No matter what, we're here for that. So I'm going to leave you with a statement, and I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. You don't have to talk to each other today. I don't do that much anymore. But I want you to hear these words. And this is something that I say at weddings, and it's very appropriate for today. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong doings, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes in all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. Just feel that. Love never ends. You can open your eyes if you like. I just want you to remember that love is the binding force that connects us all. It's what's underneath. It's that peace. It's that balance. It's that order. It's all those qualities of God. Those are all the things that we want. And you already have it. You don't have to go get it anywhere. It's already yours. It's already yours. So, you know, Science of Mind has this statement. It says to create a world that works for everyone. That sounds really big, doesn't it? All I want you to do is to do one person, one thing, one event at a time. That's it. When you do that, I mean, how many people we got here? 35, 40? 40 times, and you do it once a day. So that's 40 times 7. How much is that? Calculate for me, guys. 280 times in a week. That's a lot. And think of what you do then affects other people. They then go and do the same thing. That's how we change the world. So you have that power, and I invite you to use it. So, can you do that this coming week?
Yes.
Okay, I need to hear it a little bit louder.
Yes.
Yes, you can do that. Okay. So we're going to stand and do our affirmation if you can. You don't have to stand, but if you can, we'll do our affirmation, and we'll bring back our music, okay? And I'll pray us in. And when I'm praying, could you play some in the background? Okay. So this is our affirmation. Now we do it 3 times here. The first one is a whisper, and that's speaking to your soul. All right? The second one is just a plain voice, because then you're speaking to you. And the third one is we're going to open the door and you're going to speak it so everybody out in the world can hear it. You ready? So let's whisper it. I see every being as a divine expression of love. All right, speak. I see every being as a divine expression of love. Open that door. I see every being as a divine expression of love. Woo! All right, closing our eyes and knowing that today's message is about spreading love. Making it more than just a word. Making it something that we feel, that we see, we express, we give it forward. I say pay it forward, give it away. And so I know the divine has been here today, bringing all of us together to hear this message, to know that the power of Spirit moves through each and every one of us. And so I bless this. I bless this word. I bless this message. And the week to follow, knowing that it is anchored inside of us, that this is our work, and we do it well. And join me in saying, and so it is.